You are listening to Ordinary Eccentrics. I'm Courtney Lofton, and together we'll uncover the extraordinary lives of ordinary people. Let's hop into it. Hello.
Hello.
How's it going? Hang on, I'll turn my camera on. Hi, how are you?
Doing well. How are you doing?
Really good. All right, I'll start by having you introduce yourself, just your first and last name. And Josh, where were you born and raised? Okay, where in Southeast Ohio? Logan. Okay. I only asked my dad's side of the family's from Ravenna. I don't even know if that's Southeast Ohio, but it's a small town. It's near
Yep,
Cleveland.
never heard of that one. Okay, no, that's way
Okay.
up north. It's up by Lake Erie.
Oh, okay.
So yeah,
Okay. So what was it like growing up in Ohio in a small town?
it was good.
How
It was
would
really
you
nice.
describe your Nice. How would you describe yourself as a child, or how would your teachers or classmates describe you? Okay, we're gonna just start over because I think I lost that beginning part. You're from
Okay.
Josh Jarrell from Southeast Ohio. Tell me about yourself
You want me to say
as a child. Yeah, I know we don't have to repeat it, but we're talking about just how you were as a child, how people would describe you.
that's
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
what
yeah.
that would
And just
be.
entertaining yourself. You're the entertainment. Did you go to
Okay.
school with a lot of people, or was it a pretty small class?
Saying
Mm-hmm.
this was our
Okay.
graduating class. So
Yeah. And for when you were younger, how did you imagine your life being as an adult? Mm-hmm.
something like that,
Mm-hmm.
and it's what I'm going to
Right.
do for a living. So yeah,
What did you end up doing after high school?
not too
Mm-hmm.
far from,
Mm-hmm. Yeah. What was it like being a parent at such a young age?
and then trying
Mm-hmm.
to raise.
Right. Because it's a lot of responsibility, obviously, but and especially being so young. But I'm sure it's like there's excitement with it too. Yeah.
Thing. So
Yeah.
yeah, terrifying time.
Well, tell me more about the responsibility aspect. Like, what did you learn about yourself, like having to take on the responsibility of raising a little human?
My
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
having
Mm-hmm.
responsibility, and it's really weird. Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
age. Yeah.
Like an ego death. What advice would you have for young parents based on what you know now and like looking back on your experience? Mm-hmm.
That you even if you got a spouse.
That actually is a theme that's come up a lot in some of my other conversations because people can grow up to be very independent and it's hard to ask for help and it's hard to communicate our needs to ask for help. Is that something that you've struggled with or yeah, can you tell me more about that? Mhm.
Myself, that was a
Mhm.
continuation.
Mhm.
Try to be there
Right.
for someone.
Where do you think that comes from? Can you pinpoint why or can you like even run through scenarios that may have led to that?
They were always
Mhm.
helping. Mom would be right there
Mhm.
with you.
Mhm.
We'd have help
Mhm.
right there for them. So I think that's
Yeah.
definitely where it came from.
It's like it's a learned responsibility to take care of yourself and then like a part of values to like help take care of other people, but we don't learn to like be vulnerable and share our struggles and ask for the help that we need. Mhm.
You all, and
Mhm.
then with your own, so
Mhm. So when you're in your coaching, what have you learned or what sort of tools have you gotten to address that or work through it?
wasn't so much.
Mhm.
So being a burden.
Mhm.
So if I would
Mhm.
need it,
And in those moments, do you realize that you need a hand, or is it like, no, I got this, until it's the point where it's like you're so frustrated, or it's like maybe I do need help with this? Like, are you able to recognize, or does it take like the reflection to say like, oh yeah, I probably could have used some help?
oh
Yeah, yeah. No, I totally relate to that. Even if it's not like a 1 day task and like on a larger scale of like I'm struggling with something, like I had a business, I was really struggling, really could have used help, but I didn't even know how to ask or articulate the problems. And like you said, I felt like a burden. But I guess that's the importance of communication because when you're checking in with people and you know what's going on with them, you know that they love you and they have the time for you and all those things.
doing the same
Right.
thing. They just, it opens up
Yeah.
that line of communication.
Yeah. No, that's really good advice because our relationships as adults really do change. And especially as we become parents, I'm not a parent, but like I have a lot of friends who have kids. As people become parents and your lives and your priorities change, the relationships change too. So, what can you speak to on maintaining those relationships and like overcoming the burden of, or overcoming like the obstacle of feeling like a burden aside? Like, what can you speak to about like maintaining relationships as an adult?
with
Mhm. Mhm.
uh,
Mhm. Yeah.
having.
Yeah. No, that's good advice too, because sometimes it's easy to isolate ourselves, and especially in relationships. I know people like the relationship can become isolating, and then people lose those strong connections or those long-term connections. What can you tell me about? Well, obviously we've connected through the Jay Shetty Coaching School. So, what can you tell me about like your journey to like wanting to become the best version of yourself and to become a life coach?
But it was
Mhm.
they.
Mhm. Mhm.
And I started working
Mhm.
on myself. I feel like
Mhm.
I'm feeling really
Nice.
good.
Yeah. Did you travel alone to Vietnam for the month?
And of course, we had
COVID.
some things happened. Yeah, and I wasn't able to travel there.
Oh, cool.
What I wanted to
Yeah,
do.
that's awesome. So I love that you're doing solo travel. I feel like there's no better way to become self-aware than to be traveling alone because there's nothing else to worry about except yourself. And can you tell me about that experience, especially the first trip to Croatia, of what it felt like to be alone and not just alone, but be a foreigner?
It was a whole
Mhm.
nother
Mhm.
um,
Mhm.
inquiry. Right,
Yeah.
frequent but family. So I
Mhm.
had no. There's just
Mhm. Yeah.
traveling
Yeah.
between uni
Mhm.
and work.
And it's funny because when you are traveling alone, I feel like you tend to meet more people who are also traveling alone, and like it's like you build a network, and people can make recommendations, like you said in Vietnam, like you could take recommendations from people you met and just kind of figure out step by step what you're going to do. Can you speak more about that? What it's like building connections with strangers?
And
Yeah,
yeah,
nice.
that's
Mhm.
um.
That's cool.
So this was
Mhm.
for a couple
Mhm.
days in a row.
Yeah.
I was leaving that
Mhm.
hostel in a day.
Yeah. What advice would you have for people who want to travel but are afraid to do it alone?
All you've got to do
Mhm.
is get at
Yeah. Yeah. It's something about traveling where like you develop instant connections, and it's so different than if you were at home or even like going on vacation in another state in the US. I think that's cool. Yeah. When I did my first big solo trip, I went for a month of yoga teacher training in Bali. And when I came back to America, the first thing I noticed was how loud the airport was and just so many people talking and yelling. What was it like? Was it like a culture shock, or like what did you feel coming back to America and like being re-immersed into your home country?
Are you still there?
Can you hear me?
Yep, I can now. Yeah.
Okay. I was just asking, what was it
Um.
like coming back to America from Vietnam and like being like seeing American culture after a month away?
Yeah. So it's probably. I think it's a lot like what you just said. The culture shock wasn't as much going somewhere else as it was coming back home.
Yeah.
Uh, yeah, elsewhere, I mean, it just you see, um, got there and you just see that things work. People figure things out, and like Vietnam. I mean, so you're in Indonesia, so you've probably seen
Hmm.
this. Like you see people on scooters and cars and everything, and you see people on scooters riding 5 and 6 people on the scooter and
Yeah.
weaving in and out
Yeah.
of traffic. And they do a great job of it. I think I saw maybe 2 accidents while I was in a month in Vietnam, and one of them was just from, the wet pavement and the front tire, like, slid out of a scooter or something,
Hmm.
and they fell, and I see that, and, I'm like, these people, they get it, and nobody's getting mad at each other. They're just
Yeah.
going through there. Nobody's more important than the other person. So coming back home was definitely the bigger culture shock after being gone for a month.
Yeah. How did it change the way you interacted with people, and like did it change your relationships having like had this solo time and this time for self-reflection?
It definitely did. That's kind of where I was getting at with this trip to Vietnam was the biggest spark or igniter for me to make some change of my own. Um, it also affected my thoughts on my career and just life here and what I do. So that was like the biggest thing. Relationship wise, like I said, I didn't have a lot of close friends to be able to talk to, but I was able to talk to some few close friends at work, and that was the biggest change was my mentality of how that time away and seeing how things over there were and coming back home. I think was um, what changed most was my outlook on my career and my life, my work.
Hmm. Have you lived in Ohio your whole life then? You moved from your hometown further north?
No, I still live in the hometown.
Oh, cool. So what is
I
it
drive.
about your hometown that you love and like that makes you want to stay connected to it?
Um, so my hometown's kind of a touristy part in Ohio, if there is such a thing.
Hmm.
Um, but a lot of people come here from surrounding states. They'll come down here. We have some hiking trails. We have what's that? Sandstone rock formations, some little caves, waterfalls, things like that.
Mm.
So that's what we have around home here, and I enjoy those things. And then meeting new people, I'll hang out at the local brewery, something like that, to always be able to meet new people. And it's almost like traveling while staying at home. So I think
Hmm.
that's a big draw to me as to why I stay here. Plus my mom and my dad still live here, my great aunt, and I'm very close with them. So that's the other reason I stay here. And then I drive. I make a about a 45-minute commute to each way to work because I don't want to leave
Mm.
the small town vibe is still what I enjoy being in the country and being small town.
Yeah. No, I get it. It's like I've lived in big cities and I always imagine myself like settling down in a small town because of like just like the peacefulness of it. You kind of get to know everybody and there's just like that comfort, wouldn't you say?
It's that's twofold. You definitely have that comfort of a small town, then you also have the it's almost like a high school sometimes gossip and things to get around. You have the the good and the bad of the small town,
Yeah, because
um,
everyone knows everything
which
about you.
I still, for me, it out exactly, and for me, it outweighs the big town thing. It's 10 minutes for me to get into town so I can go get groceries or something. So if I'm planning on making a meal and I forget something, it's like, oh, well, there's 30 minutes out of my day to go grab this and come back to make some food. So you have those pluses and minuses. If you're going to live out in the country and out in small town, you got to like to drive and plan on spending more time away from home because you've got to go get everything. You can't order it. You can't have it brought to you.
Hmm.
It's a little more self sufficiency and like, oh, I've got to go do all this and I can't forget it. I've got to remember it because if not, it's a half an hour out of my day to go pick
Yeah.
up this one thing that I forgot to make food or whatever it is.
So again, we are talking about like what got you into life coaching, and we got into like the travel conversation. So when you came back home, what started to make this shift towards wanting to be a life coach?
I think again that would be back to my changes of my career and how I felt about it.
Hmm.
Um, and also the self improvement journey that I've been on for for a few years after divorce and things like that. It was slowly working on making myself a better person and the best person I could be, and it really took off in the last year. And then that trip just really added more motivation to it. Um, so trying to put it in there. I guess the thoughts of maybe a change of career was part
Hmm.
of it, and also doing this coaching class and could also maybe give me another outlook on my current career and maybe help me in it also, or just help me get myself in a better uh, peace of mind, a better
Yeah.
space to think.
Yeah, no, that makes a lot of sense. How have you seen yourself change from before you started like the self-discovery journey and now? How would you describe yourself before compared to yourself now?
Um, gosh, I think that one would be a lot of this. Still working on a lot of it, but a lot of it would be the self worth and after going through a failed marriage and not great relationship with my kids for a couple years because of that. Um, trying to figure out what good I was bringing to society, what good I was bringing to
Mhm.
myself, to my family, to anybody. Honestly, was a big thing for me, and
Mhm.
slowly working on it. And the and back to that travel kind of helped me meeting new people. It just helped me kind of recenter myself and realize that there's a whole big world out here, and what I had right in my hometown or where I was at was a smaller picture. I've mentioned my career a couple times, so I'm also a police officer. Have been
Okay.
for 11, a little over 11 years now. So I'm always seeing a lot of negative things, the
Mhm.
worst most of the time in people's lives, and and being there to that was one of the best things I enjoyed about life is being there or about work was being there and some of the time I get to people who actually wanted to sit down and talk and be able to communicate them and maybe give them some ideas to help, which is different than coaching as I'm learning, but
Yeah.
giving them some ideas and some options um, about how to maybe get them out of a bad situation or improve the situation that they were in. And
Mhm.
so I guess that's really was the biggest steps for me, and maybe thinking about taking this coaching journey as a even if I don't take it as a side gig or a full time thing at some point in time, it was definitely it was definitely to at least help me in my current career to maybe have some other options and suggestions to help other people on their journeys and
Yeah.
improve their lives.
I feel like being a police officer, you probably encounter a lot of people who are experiencing trauma or like have experienced trauma. What has that experience been like for you in working with people usually kind of in the worst moments of their life?
Yeah, that's exactly what it is dealing with people on the worst day of their life. Generally, is when I would come in contact with people.
Mhm.
Um, I would work night shift. I did for about 11 years, somewhere around 11 years.
Mhm.
And of course, working that shift is unfortunately you're not dealing with not in a negative way. You're dealing with people who are up at night, maybe have some bad situations going on regularly. They're not working
Mhm.
the regular 9 to 5 job or something like that. So you deal with that, and that was a big thing. And it's it definitely took a toll on me, and I believe on a lot of anybody who deals with this stuff.
Mhm.
It can go to any of your first responders or nurses or counselors that are dealing with that, but you're definitely dealing with trauma day in and day out on a consistent basis. It takes a toll on you, and uh, you've got to have a good, you've got to be in a good headspace to be able to deal with it. Because if not, you're going to end up having some. I think you're going to have some traumas of your own from it. And
Yeah.
luckily, I've always had a good mentality and a good outlook on things, so it hasn't been as bad. I don't believe
Yeah.
it's been as bad for me, but it's
Yeah.
definitely it's hard to deal with. Can be.
I can only imagine. How do you maintain, like, how do you manage your mental health, and how do you not take that energy home with you?
So that 40-minute drive for home for me is a big thing. I can let the day kind of just blow out the window as I'm driving home, as I like to say.
Mhm.
You know, it can just be spread along the highway as I take my way home. If you're
Mm.
somebody who deals with that and you don't have that long drive, you need I think meditation would be the next best thing for you. Maybe if you, or if you got a spouse or somebody you can talk to, maybe if they had a really hard day, would be to find that person and that's willing to listen. They don't have to respond. A lot of
Mhm.
times, just speaking things to me, just being able to say it out loud to somebody and just get a little bit of a response was great. But if you don't have that, again, meditate, sit there, give yourself those 20 minutes, whatever you can afford to give yourself, but give yourself that time to let those thoughts go through,
Mhm.
and then right out of your head, so you get that clear headspace when you get home. And I think coming home and doing that, for me, it definitely makes my time at home more enjoyable, and I don't think about work. I let it get it out of my system, and then when I'm home, I'm home.
Yeah. Would you do you have tips, not even just for like people working in law enforcement, but people who tend to keep the negative experiences in their mind, and or conversations that they've had, arguments that they have had, confrontations that may like ruminate and just replay over and over? Do you have any tips for how you can process that, and or let that negativity or those confrontations go?
Yeah. So I was I'll say I was a big overthinker. I still overthink sometimes, but I was one of these. You're talking about like conversations, and I would sit there and dwell over something I said. It might not even have been anything important,
Mhm.
but I would sit there in a conversation. I would think, "Oh, I said this." I was like, "Well, that didn't sound right, right? I don't know why I said that," or and I dwell on it. So it took time, but I think just telling myself that hey, it was over. There was no bad reaction from it. Um, so don't sit there and think about the what ifs. If it was something that was really harmful or something that you shouldn't have said, there would have been a bad reaction during that conversation or during that experience. If obviously if it was something you said and that conversation ended right then you could kind of think about it. But if it continued, it was just something that was said. It wasn't a um, really when the conversation ended or something that bad. You just
Yeah.
tell yourself that hey, this conversation continued. So that couldn't have been that bad. Something else to maybe for me is getting outside, fresh air. Obviously, we don't have
Mhm.
sunshine this time of year here in Ohio, but getting out some fresh air, sunshine, nature. I believe there's been studies done on just getting out in nature a little bit
Mhm.
throughout the week is it will work wonders for your mental health and your happiness and kind of helping you stay out of that funk or that melancholy mood,
Mm.
depression, whatever you want to call it. Yeah, so things like
Yeah.
that.
How do you stay motivated in such a, like, intense job? How do you stay motivated to keep going, like, especially through hard times?
I think the thing that I still have, I still have my days where the motivation is just is down, dealing with a lot. This time of year gets really bad, and Um,
Mm,
for us, we have family always being around each other, and believe it or not, family doesn't always get along. So we do deal with a lot of domestic incidences this time of year.
mhm.
Um, sorry, I kind of lost my train. What was the question exactly, kid? Sorry.
No, just like getting through and staying motivated when it gets hard.
Oh yeah, yeah. So I think that's where I was going with this. So deal with this and seeing this family and getting there and maybe being able to solve problems. We can't solve year long problems in a 20-minute conversation with people, but we can, for me, get there and this is part of that, giving them these ideas and maybe outlooks that they haven't heard because they haven't had an outside party
Mhm.
involved in what's going on. So that truly being there for somebody and maybe giving them these new ideas or this outside look that can help them make some changes or make them have a different outlook on it or see where this other person's coming from. I think that's the biggest motivation for me is knowing that I can actually show them a different way that they haven't seen, and maybe it will
Mhm.
change their situation or help them with the relationship with their family or
Yeah.
friends or significant whatever it is.
Yeah. No, it's like the police play a huge role in de-escalating, especially like with family conflicts, domestic stuff like that, where it's like, yes, maybe these people need therapy or like regular help, but they haven't sought out, and so by the time you're called to the scene, it's escalated so much, and you're having to play this role of therapist or social worker or what have you. Uh, I'm curious, like, what misconceptions do you think people have about police officers, especially with like this? I feel like police and law enforcement is such a divisive issue in America. Like, what do you think are
Um,
some of the misconceptions?
yeah, so I think some of the main misconceptions is, and I think that there. Don't get me wrong. There's bad people in every profession.
Right.
Law enforcement just happens to be the one that's exciting and is newsworthy. So you do have those bad incidences. I'm not saying
Mhm.
there's not bad ones. There's definitely there, but those are the ones that make news stories. So those are the ones you see, and you forget that I don't know the city that I work in. I'm sure we have what like 100,000, well over 100,000 calls a year, something like that. And I think there's even, I can't remember who puts the statistics together, but FBI things like, I think it's the FBI that'll put this together sticks. I mean, you're talking
Yeah.
0.00 whatever percentage of all police interaction ends in any type of force or
Mhm.
something like that happening. And we don't, as law enforcement, we definitely don't want to have to go that route. We don't, we're just like everybody else. We don't want to get hurt. We don't want
Right.
things like that. So I do feel that a lot of times uh, law enforcement sometimes get confused of not being people. It's, oh, you're a
Right.
cop. It's not your, hey, you're Josh Jarrell. It's, you're a cop. So that's probably the biggest thing for me, or thought that I think is a misconception or maybe
Mhm.
um, not quite right. Is we're just people too. There are bad people out there in every profession. Ours is just the one that's juicy and can make a story, but
Mhm.
it's the very small percentage of the incidences that you get to see portrayed out there.
Yeah. How has being a police officer affected your perception of your identity? Like, do you feel like Josh Jarrell, the police officer, and then you come home and you're just Josh Jarrell, or does it kind of all meld into one?
No, I think I do a pretty good job of just myself. I definitely do a very good job of um, paying attention to who I am at work and at home, and I try to be just Josh Jarrell, not Josh Jarrell cop when I'm at work. But again, it's definitely something you have to think about, and you've definitely got to have in your mindset because it would be easy to go there and know, hey, I've got authority, I've got this, and kind of let that take over. Um,
Hmm.
and maybe have that a new persona of who you are while you're at work. Let's be honest, it happens most of the time. It's the other way around. It's officers can't leave their work identity at work and they bring it home, and divorce rates and things like that, domestic arguments and things like that are
Hmm.
huge, even law enforcement, because it's hard for them to put that away. I mean, I had a little bit of it when I first got on. My wife at the time, the ex-wife there, I would come home and it was still more stern at home than I used to be or was normally.
Mm.
So it was one of those things. It was it's probably that's probably the bigger incidence is the problems it causes leaving work and trying to not take it home with you instead of the other way around.
Hmm. Yeah. I've been doing a lot of work with like energy cleansing and releasing. So to like, because I'm doing all these interviews and especially life coaching, you take on other people's energy and you have to like cleanse it off of yourself. I'm curious, when do you feel most like yourself or most like your authentic self?
Uh, I think I feel like my most authentic self would be being at home and just being out in the yard doing yard work, mowing my
Mm.
grass, taking care of just what's right here, taking focusing on my immediate area of responsibility, and knowing like this is me, this is my little piece of um quietness, or just this I can make this exactly what I want it to be. So I think that's for me is I will love just being out in the yard doing some yard work, um,
Mhm.
mowing, or just being out in my yard and
Yeah.
relaxing, playing with my dog. Those are my biggest. Yeah, those are my best spots.
Nice. I feel like I have to share my one experience with police was in college, and my friend had come from we I'm from a small town in Illinois, and I had a friend come to visit. We were both 18, but we were out drinking at a club, and I lost her. And I had to call 911, file a missing persons report, and the police came to pick us up and drove us all the way from downtown back to campus. My campus was gated, so they drove through the gates and dropped us off at our dorm. That's not only that's happened to me in New York, but one time also in Iowa City, same thing. I was out with my friends drinking underage, but I got really scared and lost, and I called 911. I was like, "I'm lost. I'm scared. I'm not from here. I really need help." And they just came and brought me home. And I just feel like my experiences have always been like literally like police to the rescue and like just like saving me and like taking me home and like no questions asked, like no underage drinking ticket, like just making sure I was safe. And I I saw a TikTok this morning of two police officers who like came and knocked at this family's door, and they're like, "Oh, we have someone in our car that has been looking for you," and they like bring this little girl outside, and it's the uh, Elf on the Shelf, which I'm too old for that, but like it was the Elf on the Shelf she was looking for. She like burst into tears crying, and I feel like the police officers, because they do deal with like so much intense things, also have the power to like do the sweetest things and like make people feel like so happy and comfortable. Like, have you had experiences like that where you've just kind of saved the day for someone or like been able to do something really sweet for a family?
Yeah, absolutely. Definitely, it's a thing. The where I used to work at, we actually had a group home, or like oh, it wasn't a group home. Sorry, it was a home that took in kids, and they would like do family food and meals for families and things like that. So every year we would all our precinct would put money together. We'd all go do the shopping at Walmart and take the gifts to that place so they could hand out gifts. It was just we'd get
Hmm.
them and then they would hand them out to the families. So done that. Um, Even little things, just out on runs, and you'll have um, kids come out to you and want to sit in the car or check out the car. And so yeah,
Yeah.
it's open the cruiser up and like, oh, you want to turn the lights on? Here, this is how you do it. Let them turn the lights on, things like that. Yeah, even with the adults, this was actually just what was it last? It was a few weeks ago. I was sitting in a I was sitting in a parking lot doing a report, and it had been right after Veterans Day, is what it was. This guy
Hmm.
came up. He was in a nice car. He was renting it. He pulled up into this parking lot and was doing photos. He had a friend there that was taking some real nice camera out, taking pictures, and of course they came up like, "Hey, do you mind if we get the cruiser behind the car for some pictures to make it look, So I was like,
Like you got pulled
absolutely,
over.
yeah, so yeah, little things like that. So I was like, yeah, I'm sitting here working on a report. I was like, but I can take 5 minutes to swing over here, pull my car behind, put the lights on, and make it look like it got pulled over. So yeah, definitely. There's a lot of incidences like that, that
Yeah.
not only I have, but everyone. I mean, sometimes somebody down on the luck, it's out and cold, and they don't have food. You take them to a Waffle House or somewhere like that, and buy them some food so they can sit there for the night. Talk to the manager. Hey, I'm buying them food. Is it cool if they sit here for the night? Done
Hmm.
that plenty of times, or just a meal for somebody who needs a ride. They've been out, so hey, let me get you some food and take you where you need to go.
Yeah. Like that's protect and serve. And I feel like we don't see enough of that shared with the world.
Yeah, and you know what the thing is it was all of us. Most of us come to terms with it, and we don't. That's why we do it. We don't care about the recognition of it because we're
Hmm.
we're gonna do it, and just doing it is good enough for us. We know we're out there doing what we're supposed to. Most of us are out there doing what we're supposed to do, and and doing the right thing. So that little bit
Yeah.
of community service or helping people in the community doesn't. We don't need the recognition from it. As long as we know we're doing it, it's good enough.
Yeah. I bet that's very rewarding just on its own to do acts
Rewarding
of
and
service.
the opposite sometimes. The other parts. It goes both ways. So it's well worth
Yeah.
it. But again,
Nice.
this is here why I'm trying to better myself, going into this coaching and trying to be the best person I can be, so I can do the same thing and take it to people out on the street, and hopefully be somebody that they can come to, and I can give them the best service possible that they deserve.
Yeah. What is your biggest hope for yourself for the future?
Biggest hope for myself. Uh, Biggest hope for myself is just to grow old, being healthy.
Hmm.
It's a huge thing for me. I want to be able to continue traveling. So I want to, keep working, travel when I can, but I want to get old and be healthy and still be able to travel and be that crazy old guy who has still has fun and
Yeah.
enjoys hanging out and just being a good time.
Cool. A lot of good stories to tell.
Hmm. Yeah.
All right. Well, thank you, Josh. I appreciate this conversation so much, and I feel like it's very I love talking to people from different backgrounds and professions. I did not know you're a police officer, so I'm really excited that we got to have that conversation.
Yeah, absolutely. And I appreciate you having me, and hopefully some people find some.
Thank you for joining us today. If you like what you heard, please subscribe and join us in our next conversation where we'll be exploring the extraordinary lives of ordinary people. I'm Courtney Lofton, and this is Ordinary Eccentrics.